The first slap didn't land on my cheek. It landed on my name. "Old woman," my son's wife said, loud enough for the backyard to hear over the hiss of the grill and the chatter of cousins. "You forget this is our house now?" 20 sets of eyes flicked toward me and then away, as if respect itself were a fragile dish someone had dropped on my grass. My son, my only boy, Marcus, stood beside her with that proud, mean smile I'd never seen when he was little and barefoot, chasing a red ball I'd patched with duct tape. He didn't raise a hand. He raised his voice and let it paint me into a corner, and his wife filmed my silence on her phone like it was the punchline. If you're hearing my story, please subscribe so more voices like mine can be heard. I'm Ruth Ann. I'm 52 years old, a grandmother to a bright-eyed first grader named Tamia, and I live in East Columbus, Ohio, in a small one-story I helped remodel with my own 2 hands. I keep roses under the front window and purple sage by the mailbox because my grandma said every house needs a little prayer in the yard. I make sweet tea by the gallon when the weather's warm and keep a cast-iron skillet, seasoned like a promise. On Sundays, I sing alto in the church choir and hum "His Eye is on the Sparrow" when the kettle starts to steam. I have a notebook with a quilted cover where I write grocery lists, phone numbers, and lately, things that don't sit right in my spirit. It started mild, like summer storms that look like a whisper until the sky breaks. "Don't bend like that, Mama," Marcus said, taking a pan from my hands at the stove. "You ain't 25. His wife, Keisha, laughed the kind of laugh that never reaches the eyes. After dinner, she wiped the counter while I dried the dishes I bought. In the kitchen, I tiled. In the house, the bank put in my name until my son's credit matched my hope for him. I told myself, "Ruth, let it go. They're young. Young people talk slick without thinking." I turned the radio to gospel and let the choir do the breathing for me. I come from women who believe in gumption the way some folks believe in luck. My mama, Gloria May, raised 3 kids and ironed shirts at the hotel off Parsons Avenue, pressing collars like she pressed life, firm but gentle. My daddy fixed cars behind the old laundromat and taught me to befriend tools, a measuring tape that knows no lies, a hammer that doesn't care who swings it if the nails go straight. When Marcus was little, he'd stand by my hip while I caulked baseboards and say, "Mama, I want my own place one day." I told him, "Work makes room for you, baby. Sweat knows the door code." When he turned 23 and his second job at the warehouse started steady, I co-signed on a small house 3 blocks from me. The bank wanted somebody sure. I'd been paying light bills since the Clinton years. They knew I was steady as Wednesday prayer. Every month, Marcus handed me his piece of the mortgage. He did for a while. He fell off for a while. Life bit at his heels. Every time I covered what he couldn't, I said, "It's all right, just help me put in the new windows when your schedule clears." He'd show up with takeout and a promise. I kept receipts inside my notebook behind the pocket for stamps. The day the deed came back from the county office, I tucked it into a manila folder and slid it under the bottom drawer of my dresser. Not because I didn't trust my child, but because paper is quiet until you need it to speak. When Tamia was born, I stood in the hallway outside the county hospital room and cried at the sound of her tiny rooster cry. That little life announcing herself before dawn. I bought a pink blanket with clouds and stitched her name on one corner by hand. I told myself, "Ruth, the house will be her refuge one day." So I planted roses. The first real crack came on a Thursday. I was at the diner off Livingston, the one with cracked vinyl seats and coffee that tastes like an honest day. Miss Dot, the neighbor who watches everything and everybody from her porch like she's guarding a gate no one else can see, slid into the booth. "You all right, Ruth?" she asked, her voice soft as cornbread. "Saw some things last night that didn't sit right." I lifted my cup but didn't sip. "Dot, you know my family business stays behind the curtains," I said, aiming for light. She took out her phone and turned the screen toward me. There was Keisha, arm crooked like a handle around Marcus's waist, him showing off the kitchen with my tile like he bought the stars. Her caption, "Our house, our rules, Lex adulting took old people problems. It wasn't the words, it was the comments. Laughing faces. 1. Tell her to go knit somewhere else. Another. That's why you don't let old folks linger. When I got home, I put the kettle on and pulled my notebook. I flipped to a clean page and wrote the date. Under it, our house, our rules, caption, comments, disrespect. Then I underlined it twice, because ink remembers when memory gets tired. That night when I brought over a peach cobbler for Tamia, because that child loves the way the crust cracks like thin ice, Marcus greeted me at the door without looking up from his phone. "Set it on the counter, Ma," he said. I kissed my granddaughter's hair and said, "You sleeping good on your big girl bed?" She nodded, her smile sweet and missing a front tooth. "Daddy says Nana has to ask to come over now," she whispered, then gave me a look that didn't belong on a 6-year-old's face. I felt the floor tilt a degree. Notebook. Tamia. Nana has to ask to come over. From who? I wish I could say I handled it in the moment, that I tapped the table and set the record straight. But disrespect comes like a slow leak. You notice the damp before the drip. Keisha started labeling the pantry shelves, her handwriting long and loopy, flour, sugar, pasta, and under the coffee she wrote mine. Not my brand, mine, as in hers. She started doing the same with drawers, utensils, foils, and on the last, Mom's junk, with a smiley face. Except it wasn't my handwriting. I don't write like a teenager. I write like a woman who paid off a car and a water heater in her lifetime. At church, Pastor Green said during announcements, "Family is what you practice, not what you post." The congregation hummed. I hummed along, pretending the words weren't tapping my shoulder. After choir, Sister Bernadine, who runs the meal train and the choir robe ministry like their national security, squeezed my hand. "You know my son moved back for a year when he fell on hard times," she said. "First 6 months, he treated my house like a hotel. Last 6, I treated him like a tenant. Paperwork was had." I smiled. I nodded. I went home and pulled my manila folder like a woman checking on rainwater in a barrel. My name was still the name. The mortgage, still mine. The deed, still mine. The agreement was a month-to-month courtesy with family faith woven through it like a hymnal refrain. I placed everything on my bed and took a picture with my flip phone and printed it at the corner pharmacy, because sometimes you need proof of your proof. Notebook. Check pantry labels. Check bank transfers from Marcus. Later missing. Print copies of deed. Note. Taxes paid by me. Past due water bill last winter. I covered. Sometimes the truth comes out of a child's mouth because the grown-ups can't carry it. One night, Tamia sat on the porch steps beside me while lightning bugs stitched Morse code in the dark. "Nana," she said, swinging her legs, "why did Mommy tell Miss Rachel at school that you're messy and you make the kitchen smell old?" She blinked at me, waiting for the kind of answer a child thinks you always have ready. I put my arm around her and took in the honeysuckle and gasoline scent of our block. "Baby, sometimes grown folks say things they think will make them sound big," I said, "but small words make small people." Inside, I could hear Keisha's laughter, that sugary snap like brittle you bite just to see if it'll hurt your teeth. "Go on in, sugar," I told Tamia. When the screen door clicked and her little feet pattered across the linoleum, I reached for my notebook and wrote, "Tamia, school, Miss Rachel, Mommy said Nana messy, kitchen smells old." I underlined smells old so hard the tip of my pen tore the paper. The night of the backyard incident, we'd planned a simple cookout. Hot dogs, chicken, my baked beans that sleep in the oven all afternoon with a strip of bacon laid across like a shawl. The cousins came with store-brand soda and laughter. The men from Marcus's job brought a speaker the size of a small child and set it on the picnic table. I was flipping chicken when Keisha upped the music and slid between me and the grill with a dance that felt like a dare. "Ma'am," she sang, drawing the word out like a joke, "you don't have to do all that. We got it. You go sit. Hot grease pops, baby, I said, gently nudging her with the grill tongs. Move to the side. She lifted the tongs from my hand like she was doing me a kindness. The music rose. The cousins hooted. Someone yelled, "Teach her, Keisha," while a phone lifted high to catch the moment. Marcus stood behind her, smiling, not at me, but at the attention. "We good, Mama," he said. "This our house, our party. You can relax." That word, our, kept growing teeth. Later I went inside to wash the sticky off my hands and found the bathroom cabinet open. My blood pressure pills had been pushed to the back and replaced with a box labeled Keisha's hair care. Do not touch. A silly petty thing, you could argue, but somewhere deep a string pulled tight. My hands started trembling. I turned on the faucet and let the water run until it went cool. In the mirror, my face looked like my mama's when she'd catch my brother lying about cutting school, tired. Not from age, from being made to prove what shouldn't need proof. When I stepped back out, Keisha held her phone at face level, pouting her lips. "Say hi to TikTok, Nana," she chirped, and swung the camera so close I could count her mascara clumps. "Y'all, this is the one who thinks she runs my kitchen." My cheeks warmed, not from shame, but from anger knocking on the door of my composure. "Put that phone down," I said quietly. "We don't invite strangers to our table." "You don't pay for this table," she said in the same tone a clerk uses to tell you your coupon expired last week. And then Marcus did the thing I still can't write down without my hand tightening. He snapped his fingers, like I was a waitress late with his order. "Go sit down, Ruth," he said. Not Mama, not Ma. Ruth, like I was any woman off the sidewalk, like the name he first said as a baby was just a word in his mouth. The cousins fell silent. The speaker kept thumping like a long, stupid heartbeat. I stared at my son. I didn't move. He stepped closer, shoulders big, voice low. "Sit. Down." Keisha laughed, the kind that makes other people join in because they're scared not to. Phones rose again, little black eyes unblinking. And there it was, humiliation dressed like family fun. I did not sit. I did what my mama taught me to do when a storm comes and you're not sure if the porch roof is sound. You test the beams. "Marcus," I said, "lower your voice and tell your wife to lower that camera." "Or what?" Keisha asked, grin sharp. "You gonna write me up in your little notebook?" And she mimed scribbling, and someone behind her cackled in that mean, light way that makes you remember middle school hallways. I put my dish towel down and I walked. Not inside. Not toward the street. Toward the fence, where Miss Dot had appeared like she always does when there's a rumor of thunder. She tilted her head, her eyes asking questions she didn't say out loud. I lifted my chin, said nothing, and kept walking around the side of the house to my car. The laughter swelled behind me, then died like a bad song. Notebook, later. Backyard, phones filming. Our house. Ruth, not Mama. Miss Dot witnessed. Silence isn't surrender, it's strategy. That night, my house felt unfamiliar, as if the furniture had shifted while I was gone. I boiled water, poured it over a tea bag, and watched the dark bloom like a bruise in the cup. I pulled the manila folder, laid out the deed, the mortgage, the tax receipts with my name printed clear as Sunday. I set my notebook beside them and drew a little square for a checklist, because order calms me when anger tries to run the room. Confirm title status. Review any gifts claimed by Marcus, Keisha. Bank transfers. What's missing? Witnesses. Miss Dot. Choir sisters. Pastor for counsel. Lawyer? The name came to me like a hymn you haven't sung in years, but your mouth still knows the shape of the words. Simone Harris, a sister from church who left the choir to finish law school and now keeps a tidy office above the barber shop on Broad Street. I tucked the printed photo of my papers in my purse like a talisman and slept 2 hours, my mind marching like a drumline. At dawn, I tied a scarf over my hair and stepped into air that tasted like rain and metal. The sky held its breath. Miss Dot, already on her porch with a mug, called, "I got eyes if you need them, Ruth." "You might," I called back. "And ears, too." Then I slid into my car and drove those 6 blocks feeling both young and old at the same time, young in purpose, old in the ache behind my ribs. Simone's office smelled like lemon oil and printer ink. She stood up when I came in, smoothing her navy skirt. "Sister Ruth," she said, "what trouble blowing?" I set the manila folder on her desk and opened it slow. "I need to know what belongs to me," I said, "and what belongs to my son because I was generous and not because the law says so." Simone put on her reading glasses, the thin kind that makes you look at folks over the frame when it's time to get serious. She flipped through the copies, nodded, and made notes with a pen that clicked sharply. "Everything here," she said, tapping the deed with her nail, "says the same name. Yours." I breathed out so long my chest trembled. "He's been saying 'our' like it's a prayer," I whispered. "His wife says it like a threat." Simone looked me in the eyes. "Words don't move property lines. Filings do." She slid a form across the desk. "You can keep status quo. You can set terms. Or you can serve notice that a courtesy has been trampled into. Entitlement." She paused. "But before we draw a sword, we draw a circle. Safety first." I knew what she meant. Names we speak plain in our community. Protective orders, welfare checks, sheriff's deputies who show up slow or fast depending on what name your neighborhood has in the dispatcher's mouth. I thought of Tamia, her missing tooth, the way she hugged my waist and left cookie crumbs stuck to my sweater like glitter. "I don't want a war," I said. "I want a boundary." Simone smiled a tired smile I recognized from my own mirror. "Boundaries feel like war to those who invade," she said. She guided me through language that tasted like chalk. Notice of occupancy terms, guest versus tenant, rescission of informal permission. I signed my name in 3 places, and each R in Ruth felt like a steadying step. Notebook. Simone. Filed notice of terms. Keep copies on me. I didn't tell Marcus right away. I believe in warnings, not surprises, even when respect hasn't been returned. But life had other plans. That same afternoon, I stopped by the school to drop off new crayons for Tamia's class. Miss Rachel, the teacher with the long braids and the patience of an angel, walked me to the door. "She had a rough morning," she said gently. "Some kids teased her about a video." My stomach dropped. "What video?" She hesitated, then said, "It's all over, just a clip of the cookout, but you know how kids are." She squeezed my hand. "I told them we don't talk that way about elders in my classroom." The clip later was 15 seconds of me stepping away from the grill. Keisha's face leaned toward her phone. Marcus in the background saying, "Go sit down, Ruth." It cut before you saw me keep walking. The comments, again, were a bonfire. I didn't finish reading them. I closed my flip phone and leaned my forehead against the cool glass of my kitchen window and watched a sparrow hop along the fence, like he had better sense than most people that day. I walked to Marcus's house with the letter Simone printed out for me and an envelope of copies, and I rang the bell. Keisha opened the door with a smile that stopped halfway. She looked at the envelope like it might bite her. "What's that?" "Something I should have done before your captions learned to run," I said, my voice even. She reached for her phone with the kind of reflex a person has when they don't know how to be present without a witness. "Put that away," I said. "This is family business." Marcus appeared behind her, jaw tight. "You come to start something?" he asked. "I came to put words on paper instead of screens," I said. I handed him the envelope. He tore it open, skimmed the first page, and laughed. "Notice?" He held it between 2 fingers like it smelled bad. "To who?" "To you," I said, "and to anyone living here who thinks my generosity is a doormat." Keisha's lips parted. I could see the calculation happening on her face, fast fingers typing in her brain. "You can't just," she started. "I can," I said, and I did. The air between us changed. You could feel it, like the moment before a storm when the birds go quiet. Marcus dropped the papers on the side table like a man putting down a hand he thinks he's going to beat anyway. "We'll see about this," he said. "We will," I said. "In 30 days, with respect or with moving boxes. Your choice." Notebook. Delivered notice at 3:12 p.m. Witness. None but door cam. Keep calm. I wish the story spun towards apology right there. Folks learning. Boundaries respected. But arrogance is a stubborn stain. For a week, Keisha posted subtweets. Those petty little lines without names that everyone knows are about you. Some folks forget who changed their diapers. Some folks act like a deed is a crown. Marcus said nothing to me, which was worse. He spoke to Tamia. "Nana is being dramatic," he told her within earshot. "Grown folks' business." She repeated it to me with the faithful cruelty only children can carry without knowing it hurts. Miss Dot caught me at the mailbox. "They had a man with a clipboard at the house this morning," she whispered, like we were sharing state secrets. "Snooping around the porch, looking at gutters, taking pictures." "Appraiser," I said, my mouth going dry. "Not mine." I walked straight to Simone's office. "Could they be trying to refinance?" I asked, the word tasting like betrayal on my tongue. Simone arched an eyebrow. "Not without your signature. But they can bluff, they can confuse, they can embarrass." She pulled up county records on her screen. "No filings, just noise." That night, someone slid a note under my door. I recognized the cheap spiral paper tear. It was from Tamia, letters big and stubborn. "Nana," Daddy said, "if you love me, you won't make us move." I sat down on the rug and held that paper like it was a bird with a broken wing. I wrote back, careful and simple. "Baby, love means making sure grown-ups act right so kids can be safe. Nana will always love you." Notebook. Tamia. Note. Emotional tool used by Marcus. Remember, we don't let children carry grown folks' mess. I started to notice other things I'd missed while trying to be the cool water on a hot day. Keisha switching the mailbox key off my ring by accident. Marcus forgetting to put me on the pickup list at school, so I had to stand outside until Miss Rachel fetched her principal to approve me. A credit card offer in my mail with his name attached and the address changed to theirs. I took a deep breath and walked taller, because sometimes the only way to teach people you're not afraid is to let your shoulders remember where they belong. At choir rehearsal, I sang too loud on the bridge, and Sister Bernadine caught my eye and nodded like, "Yes, push the note, sis." After, Pastor Green called me into his office, a little room that smells like old Bibles and fresh coffee. "You need me to sit with you for a conversation?" he asked. That's all he said. Nothing more. The offer sat between us like a chair pulled out at a table. "Not yet," I told him, "but maybe soon. At the house, with eyes that see beyond blood." "Sometimes," he said, "the only language the stubborn understand is consequence. You can deliver consequence and keep your dignity. Those are not opposites." He reached in a drawer and handed me a slim black notebook, the kind police use in TV shows. "My daddy called this a peace book," he said. "You write what happens so you don't have to raise your voice later." I smiled. "I already keep one," I said, tapping my bag. "Then double it," he said and winked. The next Sunday after service, I went home and made cornbread that rose like a hymn and greens that cooked down slow with smoked turkey. I called Marcus. "Come to dinner," I said. "Just you." He sighed like the request itself cost him. "Keisha coming," he said. "Then tell her to come too," I answered. When they arrived, I had the table set with cloth napkins I save for holidays, because sometimes you must declare the day special yourself. We ate in a quiet that wasn't peace. Keisha complimented the greens with a voice sugar-sweet but knife-sharp beneath. Marcus chewed like a man working out a problem he thought could be solved by grinding. I waited until plates were set aside, and Tamia wandered to the living room to play with the dollhouse I keep here. A wooden one with tiny curtains and a door that always opens when you turn the knob. I raised you to be a good man, I told my son, looking at him, not the table. Not just a man who pays a bill when he remembers, a man who knows the difference between respect and ownership. You forgot. I'm here to help you remember. Keisha sucked her teeth and leaned back, phone face down for once. Here we go, she muttered. I held her gaze a second and then returned to my son's face. My baby grown big, my joy grown careless. Marcus, I said, I need you to say Mama when you talk to me, and I need you to stop letting folks call me out my name. He didn't look at me. He looked at the ceiling. Then he said, Mama. And for a second, my chest warmed. Then he said, But this is our house. We the ones living in it. You can't just... I can, I said softly, because I did this so you could begin, not so you could pretend. He stood up fast enough that the chair toppled. Keisha flinched, like drama tasted good on her tongue. You threatening me? He asked, jaw flexing. I'm offering a path, I said, with dates, with help, with dignity. Or you can choose the other path where boxes come, and so do folks with badges who don't sing alto with me on Sunday. Keisha's smile came back. She talking about calling the police, she said, amused, on her own son. I'm talking about protecting my grandbaby from watching grown folks learn lessons the hard way, I said. I'm talking about you not filming my face like a trophy. I lifted the envelope Simone told me to deliver in person and slid it across the table. 30 days, I said, and before you start huffing, listen. I will pay for first and last month deposit on a spot you choose within reason. I will help you move. I will watch Tamia while you work, but the mockery stops in my lifetime. Marcus's hand hovered above the envelope and then dropped to his side. He didn't take it. He stared at the wall behind me and breathed like a man trying to inhale pride as oxygen. Keisha reached for the paper instead. We'll see you in court, she said, triumph lighting her eyes like a wrong answer given with too much confidence. Maybe you will, I said. Maybe you'll have to tell a judge why you think a camera is a weapon and a deed is a toy. Tamia popped back into the room with a doll in each hand. Nana, can my dolls sleep here tonight? She asked, oblivious to the adult earthquake. They sure can, baby, I said, my voice clean, and they can have pancakes in the morning. Keisha leaned forward and whispered something to Marcus with her lips barely moving. I didn't need to hear it to know the shape of it. Don't back down. He squared his shoulders, picked up the envelope, and crushed it in his fist. We not going anywhere, he said. He dropped the crumpled notice onto the plate where crumbs of cornbread clung like little suns. And if you try anything, Ruth, we'll make sure everybody sees who you really are. He left without touching me. No slap, just the measure of a man shrinking in his own mother's dining room and trying to hurt her with his leaving. The door shut. The house listened. I let the quiet settle, and then I started humming because sometimes you have to lay a melody over the scar. Notebook. Dinner. Words. We not going anywhere. Envelope crumpled. Witness. Tamia. Offer of help refused. 2 days later, my mailbox wore a scar. Someone had jammed a stick into the keyhole. The roses by my window looked scuffed, like a foot had kicked them on purpose. A bill from the gas company arrived, addressed not to me, but to resident. Little things that add up like pennies that still buy something when you drop enough of them on the counter. I called the gas company. They corrected the name. I went to the hardware store, bought a new mailbox lock, and changed it myself with my daddy's long-handled screwdriver. I trimmed my roses and spoke to them like I used to speak to Marcus when he was feverish at 3 a.m. You gon' be all right. Miss Dot came down her steps with a casserole because she believes macaroni can hold a woman together the way scaffolding holds a building. "They poking the bear," she said. "What they forget is the bear built the woods." Simone called. "Court date set," she said. "They filed a motion to dismiss your notice as harassment." "Harassment," I repeated, letting the word roll around my mouth like a bad cough drop. "We'll answer in writing and with calm," she said, "and we'll ask the court to remind your son what names are on which lines." That evening, as the sky bruised into purple, Tamia sat at my kitchen table painting with watercolors that bled softly on paper. "Nana?" she asked without looking up. "Can we sleep in the living room like a camp?" "We can," I said, even though I knew she was really asking, "Can we be where it feels safe?" We made a tent with sheets and chairs and read a picture Bible by flashlight. She fell asleep with her hand on my wrist. I stared at the ceiling and let the fan trace slow circles over us and counted my breaths like small prayers. 7 a.m, my phone rang. Unknown number, local prefix. "Is this Ms. Ruth Ann?" a woman asked in a voice professional and thin. "Yes." "This is Ms. Alvarez from the county," she said. "We received an anonymous call about a potential elder neglect situation." My fingers went cold. "Excuse me?" "We are required to follow up. A report claimed your living conditions are unclean and unsafe. We can schedule a visit to clear this up." I stood very still, my bare feet planted on my kitchen tile like roots. "Schedule it," I said. "Today, and bring whoever you need to bring. You'll find my floor so clean you can see your reflection and my fridge stocked like it's a holiday." After I clicked off, I sat down and laughed a small, humorless laugh because when people run out of truth, they order lies off the same menu every time. I called Simone. "They done called the county," I said. "Good," she replied. "Then we'll have testimony about your home that isn't from their phones." Miss Alvarez came that afternoon and stood just inside my doorway, taking in the lemon oil smell and the line of shoes by the mat. She glanced at the Bible on the coffee table with a yellow, sticky note marking Psalms. She wrote things on a tablet and checked boxes. "You bake?" she asked, seeing the pies cooling by the window. "Every third Thursday," I said. She smiled. "My grandma did the same," she said. She left with a promise to file a note. "No concerns. Respectful home." I thanked the Lord out loud when the door clicked, loud enough for my roses to hear. Notebook. County visit. Cleared. Evidence of false report. The night before the hearing, I walked my front yard one slow loop. The porch light buzzed with a moth singing its tiny moth song. Across the way, I could see the blue of television flicker in Marcus's living room window, like a thing underwater. I thought of all the times I'd watched that same room and imagined holiday mornings with paper snow drowning the carpet, of Tamia's little feet on that hallway, of the mature man Marcus could have become with the right choices layered like bricks on a strong foundation. Grief pressed hard, grief for what should have been as much as grief for what was. I went inside and opened my notebook to a fresh page. At the top I wrote, "His house, my name." Then I crossed it out and wrote instead, "Boundary is love." The pen paused. Then I wrote, "If they won't stop, I will." Below it, I drew a box around a single word. Options: sell, lease, lock change, with notice, sheriff's deputy present, pastor present, lawyer present, witness present, video off, dignity on. I set my clothes for the morning. Navy skirt, white blouse, the silver cross Mama left me. I pressed a hand to my chest and felt the small, steady thump like a drummer keeping time for a choir. "We go sing, Ruth," I said to the woman in the mirror, "even if it's just you in this kitchen." Outside, a siren wailed and faded into the kind of quiet that comes right before a day that will change your life. The courthouse sat on Main like an old hymn, plain brick, big windows, everything echoing even when nobody talked loud. I parked 2 blocks away because I like time to gather myself between who I am at home and who I must be in front of a judge. Simone met me on the steps. Navy suit, neat, hair braided back like a crown that doesn't need jewels. "We play it simple," she said. "Facts, dates, names. Your voice calm as Sunday." I patted my bag for the papers I always carry. Copies of the deed, mortgage, tax receipts, the notice I served, my notebook with its quilted cover. I could feel the weight like a small anchor, keeping me from drifting into anger. Inside, the air was cool and dry. The clerk called our case with a tone that made every name sound the same. Marcus walked in with Keisha on his arm. He wore a shirt I'd bought him last Christmas, the one with tiny blue squares. He didn't look at me. Keisha did. Quick, smug, like a person about to show off a trick she thinks will change the game. We sat opposite each other at two tables that had seen more family than a reunion, just in different ways. The judge was a black woman with silver hair and a voice like gravel and tea. She looked at the file, then at me over her glasses. "Ms. Ruth Ann," she said, "you filed a notice of occupancy terms?" "Yes, Your Honor," I said, my mouth dry but steady. "I co-signed the mortgage. The deed and the note remain in my name. I offered a path with time and help. This is my boundary." She nodded slowly, then turned to Marcus. "And you, sir?" He cleared his throat, glanced at Keisha, and said, "My mother's being petty. We live there. It's our house. She told us to move to control us. She's difficult." The judge's eyebrow did a little dance. "Difficult isn't a legal category," she said dryly. Keisha started to speak, but the judge lifted a finger. "Ma'am, unless you are counsel, you do not address this court." Simone slid a stack across the table, photocopies crisp. "Your Honor," she said, "we have the deed, tax receipts for the last 4 years paid by Ms. Ruth Ann, and the written notice delivered with 30 days and an offer of assistance. We also have a report from County Adult Protective Services. No concerns, respectful home, which we believe was triggered by an anonymous call. Finally, we have a statement from a neighbor, Ms. Dorothy Evans, regarding escalating disrespect, culminating in public humiliation at a family event." Marcus's jaw tightened. Keisha rolled her eyes small and sharp. The judge held up a palm, then looked at the papers. She took her time with each page the way a careful cook checks every burner twice. "Mr. Marcus," she said finally, "generosity is not a deed transfer. This court recognizes Ms. Ruth Ann's right to set terms for occupancy, where she retains ownership and liability. I find the notice valid. You will comply within 21 days from today." She leaned forward. "And you will do so peaceably. If you require aid to relocate, I suggest you accept the assistance already offered." She paused. "I also suggest you call your mother Mama when you speak to her. You're in my courtroom, not on the internet." Keisha whispered, "This is crazy. Like disbelief could erase ink." Marcus said nothing, just stared at the table like answers might swim up. The gavel tapped once, quiet as a spoon against a cup. We stood. I felt the floor again, solid, like a promise kept. In the hallway, Marcus caught up, his face a mix I recognized from when he was 15 and caught lying about a shift at work he never worked. "Mama," he said, the words slow, reluctant. True. "We need more time." I looked at the clock on the wall, the hands climbing toward noon like tired climbers on a hill. "I gave you time before paper ever got involved," I said, "but I'll give you 1 more week added to the 21 if you meet me halfway with respect. No cameras, no subtweets, no dragging Tamia into this." He nodded, then looked at Keisha and curved away like a plant that forgot where the sun is. We stepped outside. Simone squeezed my hand. "Boundary held," she said. "Now we guard it." The weather had turned hot like a switch had been flipped. I stood in the heat, letting it push through my bones and melt the chill left by courtrooms and other people's choices. Across the street, a man sold bottled water from a cooler for $1. I bought 2 and handed one to Simone. We drank without speaking, like teammates after the first quarter of a long game. I thought the order would calm things. It brought quiet for a day, maybe 2. Then the small wars began. A lockbox appeared on the porch of Marcus's house, the kind realtors use when a place is between owners. I hadn't put it there. I texted Simone a picture. She called within minutes. "That's a message, not a sale," she said, "but we'll message back." She drafted a letter, measured, lawyer calm, reminding them all listings must be approved by the titled owner and all access to keys must be coordinated. We sent it certified. Paper listens to paper. That afternoon, the school called. "Tamia had a stomach ache," Miss Rachel said. "She says it hurts when Mommy and Daddy talk loud." I closed my eyes and leaned on the kitchen counter until the laminate pattern pressed little leaves into my palm. "I'll pick her up," I said. "She can nap on my couch." When I arrived, Tamia walked out with her backpack dragging and her eyes dull. "It's too loud at home," she said, mouth small. "Daddy says Nana is stealing our house." I squatted to her height. "Baby," I said, keeping my voice soft. "Houses can't be stolen like toys. This is grown folks learning the price of their words." She rode in the car with her head against the seat and one hand tangled in the strap, like she was bracing for a curve. At my place, she fell asleep so fast her breath caught up only later. I tucked a blanket around her and sat in the chair by the window, watching the light crawl across the rug, and I let the anger slide through me and out, like a wave I refused to drown beneath. Notebook. Post-court lockbox. Letter sent. Tamia stomachache. Too loud. Protect her peace. We had a week of almost normal, the almost always a shadow in the corner. I cooked, tended my roses, sang at church. Marcus texted once about a storage unit. Keisha posted a quote about toxic elders with a picture of a woman I didn't recognize and a halo of filters. Then Thursday came with a surprise I didn't order. The bank called. A woman named Tasha on the other end, voice patient like a good nurse. "Ms. Ruth Ann," she said, "this is a courtesy call. We received an online application for a home equity line against your property. It listed your son as applicant and included a signature that appeared to be yours." My mouth went dry. "Appeared?" I said. "Like it dressed up as me for Halloween?" Tasha paused, a smile in her exhale. "Let's just say it wasn't your hand. We flagged it and did not process. We wanted you to know." "May I see the file?" I asked, every polite word feeling like a nail I had to set straight. She said yes, as long as I came in person. I hung up and called Simone. "They tried to pull money out the walls," I said. Simone's voice cooled by 10 degrees. "We secure the bank's note, get a copy, and we decide whether to pursue charges or use it as leverage. Bring your notebook." The bank lobby felt like air conditioning and pens tethered by chains. Tasha came out from behind a glass door. A black woman my age, with tired eyes that still had brightness tucked in a corner. She ushered me into a small office and placed a manila folder on the desk between us like we were about to examine pictures of a new baby. Instead, I looked at a signature that looked like it tried to imitate mine and tripped over the R in Ruth. The loop on the H was wrong. The slant leaned drunk. "He submitted this?" I asked, touching nothing. Tasha nodded. "IP address, track to your son's address. We don't play around with this stuff." I asked for copies. She slid them to me with the care of a nurse handing you pills you don't want but need. "He could have lost the roof over his child chasing pride," she said, not unkind. "He could have dragged you into a debt you never asked for." I let the truth sit. It wasn't heavy, it was exact. "Thank you," I said, "for catching it." She shrugged. "My grandma kept a rolled-up deed in a coffee can in her pantry," she said, smiling. Said, "This paper is my yes and my no. I know what this means." I left the bank and sat in my car with my hands on the steering wheel, the leather hot under my palms. Traffic slid by like a stream that never looks back. I felt something harden, not mean, just final. The set of my mouth changed, My mama had that set when she decided who wasn't allowed in our home after a certain point. I touched the corner of my notebook as if it were a little Bible. Notebook, bank, attempted HELOC, forged signature, copies obtained, IP, Marcus's address. This is a line they can't see themselves crossing. We draw it for them. I didn't go to Marcus with the papers. Not yet. I took them to Pastor Green's office, put them on the desk, and watched his eyes change from kind to granite. He didn't say Lord out loud, but it hung in the room anyway. "You want me with you for this conversation?" he asked again. "I want God with me," I said, "and a witness." "You'll have both," he said, dialing a number. "I'm calling Brother Leon, retired sheriff's deputy. Quiet presence. Knows how to be in a room like a wall. Supportive, and you don't lean on it too hard." We set the meeting for Saturday at my house. I cooked because cooking steadies me, not because food fixes everything. I made chicken baked slow with onions, mac and cheese thick as a song, cabbage with a little vinegar to wake it up. The table set itself while I breathed like I was learning how. Keisha arrived first, wearing sunglasses like she thought she'd be photographed, phone in hand like a weapon. Marcus followed, jaw tight. Pastor and Brother Leon were already sitting in my living room, not saying much, just being. The way good men are when there's a fire you don't need to feed, but you do need to control. I set the folder on the coffee table and tapped it once with my finger, as if to knock before opening. "This," I said, "is what you almost did. This is what the bank stopped. This is what could have burned all of us down." I slid the papers across so they could see the copy of the signature. Marcus's face changed like a cloud crossing a field. Keisha leaned in too quick. "That could be anybody's," she said, the words leaping out like a puppy that never learned stay. "It's not," I said. "It's the address on your internet, the timestamp right after one of your little posts about my control." Marcus rubbed his face as if the guilt might smudge off. "It wasn't like that," he said, which is the first sentence of every story where somebody knows better. "We were going to pay it back." Brother Leon shifted his weight, a big man making a small sound like a door settling in a hinge. "Son," he said, voice level, eyes steady, "that's not how house paper works. You don't borrow off a thing somebody else owns with their name and figure out the math later. That's how you end up explaining yourself to folks who have no humor at all." Keisha crossed her arms. "Everybody borrows," she muttered. "Not like this," Pastor said, quiet thunder, "and not after biting the hand that bought your first couch." He looked at Marcus, not at her. "You're a father. Show your child how men repair." I took a breath that reached all the way to the floor and back. "I offered to help you move with dignity," I said. "I offered to pay deposits, watch Tamia, feed you while you packed. You spit on it with a forged signature. The court gave you 21 days. I gave you 28. You've got 19 left. Here's what we do between now and then. You pack, you call the storage unit man, you find a place. I will not leave my house or my name in the hands of your pride another day." Marcus stared at the papers like they were a mirror he didn't want. "Mama, he started. But the rest got lost in the space between us, the space where the baby he was couldn't step to the man he needed to be. Keisha's mouth opened, then closed. She had nothing that day. Sometimes the wind goes out of even the biggest talkers. I slid another paper across the table, a list written in my hand, boxes, movers, deposits, a budget for a modest place near Tamia's school, phone numbers for 2 complexes with vacancies. It's a strange thing, how love can look like an eviction when you don't know the difference between shelter and softness. "Take the list," I said, "or leave with just your pride. Pride don't pay rent." Pastor bowed his head and prayed short. None of that long, showy stuff. "Lord, we ask for humility without humiliation, and a path lit clear enough a stubborn man can see it," he murmured. When we lifted our heads, Marcus took the list. Keisha picked at her nail like she was cleaning something ugly from underneath. They left with their mouths closed, which was victory enough for one. Saturday. Notebook. Meeting. Pastor. Leon present. HELOC shown. Marcus took list. 19 days. The thing about arrogance is it doesn't go out with the first rain. It smolders. 2 nights later, I woke to light on my bedroom ceiling that shouldn't have been there. The stutter of blue and red bouncing against my curtains. I sat up, heart already on its feet. A knock at my door, firm but not frantic. I slid my feet into my slippers, tied my robe, and went slow. When I opened up, a young officer stood with polite eyes and a flashlight at his chest, like he didn't want to disturb my paint. "Evening, ma'am," he said. "We got a call about a domestic disturbance at this address." I just looked at him until the words fell off me like rain off a good roof. Behind him, I could see Miss Dot on her porch in her curlers and robe, arms crossed, head already shaking. "From who?" I asked, not because I didn't know, but because I wanted to hear him say anonymous so he could practice the sound of that lie. He shifted. "Anonymous tip." Brother Leon, who lives 3 doors down, materialized like a good ghost out of the dark. "Officer," he said, "I'm retired. I'll stand right here as neighbor and witness if Ms. Ruth allows." "I do," I said. "Please come in," I told the young man. "See the quiet for yourself." He stepped into a house that smelled like lavender and starch. The only sound was the clock, steady as ever. "Sorry to bother you," he said, embarrassment creeping up his cheeks. "You weren't a bother," I told him, "but tell your dispatcher some folks think attention is a weapon." He nodded. "Understood." When he left, Miss Dot called across the hedges. "If they call again, they gon' have to listen to me telling them what's not happening. I got time on a phone, too." I laughed, small and tired. "I know you do." Notebook. Police. Anonymous call. Officer polite. Leon present. Miss Dot saw. Pattern established. In the middle of foolishness, life keeps putting one foot in front of the other. Tamia still needed help with her reading log. The choir still needed altos to hold the middle. The roses still needed deadheading. I work my shifts at the diner 2 mornings a week because I like the hum of coffee cups and regulars who tip with exact cash and good stories. Mr. Clarence sat at the counter and told me, "A house ain't a home till the people in it tell the truth." And I refilled his cup like that counted as medicine. I started packing a box at my own place, not to move out, but to move on. Into it, I put the small things that hurt to look at right now. Marcus's kindergarten handprint on a paper plate, a Mother's Day card with crooked letters, a photo of him grinning at 14 holding a hammer next to me. I wrapped them in tissue like bones that needed protection until the healing took. Love isn't blindness. It's choosing to see the whole picture and still make dinner. That Friday, a text from Marcus pinged my phone. "We found a 2-bedroom on Joyce Ave. Deposit $1,200. First month $1,200. I stared at the numbers and felt my jaw unclench for the first time in days. I replied, "I'll bring cashier's check for deposit Monday. I'll meet landlord with you. Keep receipt." He sent back a thumbs up and then, a minute later, a heart. It was small as trinkets in a claw machine, but it was something. Keisha posted a picture of a bare-walled apartment with the caption, "New Beginnings." Under it, a comment from a friend. "You showed that old lady who's boss." Keisha replied with a smiley face. I felt heat rise in my chest and then fall. The internet is a stage for people who don't know how to be real in a room. I closed my phone and peeled sweet potatoes for Sunday's candied dish because sugar and cinnamon can fix the smell of burnt pride in your own kitchen. Monday, the landlord met us in a lobby that smelled like fresh paint and last week's cigarettes. He was a white man with a gut and a friendly lie about how quiet the building is. Simone insisted on joining. She stood a little behind me like a right hand. We read the lease line by line like a prayer you don't want to misquote. Marcus signed, Keisha signed. I handed over the cashier's check and got the receipt. "Keys on Friday," the landlord said. "Y'all can start moving then." He looked at me, eyes softening. "You a good mama," he said in a low voice. "Don't nobody hand over money like that and not be." I nodded once because my mouth couldn't bear kindness without breaking. On the way out, Keisha snapped a picture of the hallway with the good light. "Oh, Lord," Simone muttered under her breath, so quiet only the angel on her shoulder heard. Outside, I hugged Marcus quick, brief, enough to remind both of us who we were before all this. "Proud of you for this, baby," I said. He leaned into it for half a second and then away, but the half was real. Notebook, lease signed, joy save, keys Friday, receipt in back pocket sleeve. Simone present. You learn to live on the edge of relief like it's a porch swing that still creaks. Wednesday came with another wobble. Miss Rachel called mid-morning. "Tamia's fine," she started, and I exhaled. But she brought a video to show and tell, one of the cookout clips. She said, "This is when my mommy said Nana doesn't run our house." The kids laughed because they didn't know better. We handled it, but I wanted you to know. I drove to the school with cookies wrapped in napkins, sugar bribery for peace, I guess, and asked to speak to Miss Rachel in the hallway. "I can talk to her," she offered. "Remind her we keep family inside the circle." "I will," I said. "But maybe you could also show the class that respect is not something you earn with age. It's something you give because of it." She smiled. "Already did," she said. "We made a list on the board. Ways to be kind to grown-ups. Number 1 was, don't record them without asking. Kids learn fast." At home, I sat with Tamia and drew a circle on a piece of paper. In it, I wrote, Nana, Daddy, Mommy, Pastor, Teacher. "This is our circle," I told her. "The internet is not in it. Neighbors are on the porch, not in the living room. If you feel scared or confused, you bring it to someone in this circle." She traced the circle with her finger. "Can Miss Dot be on the porch?" she asked. I laughed. "Miss Dot already got her own porch," I said. "But yes, she can be in the yard." Notebook, Tamia, circle talk. Miss Rachel, proactive, my heart steady. The closer we got to moving day, the quieter Marcus became. Keisha stayed loud, but that's the nature of some people. When reality presses, they turn up the volume like it's a lamp. She posted packing videos with fast music, wrote captions like, "We building our own kingdom." A neighbor told me she tried to sell the old dining table on Facebook Marketplace, calling it vintage. I corrected the listing in my mind, borrowed, and returned. Thursday evening, Marcus knocked on my door alone. He held a shoebox, old, scuffed, and kept his eyes on the floor. "Found this in your hall closet," he said, voice low. "Thought you might want it." I took the box. Inside were cards I'd saved. Mother's Day, birthday, a finger-painted turkey from when he was 5, his little handprint making the gobbler's body. There was a photo of me at 28, holding him on my hip, both of us squinting in the sun, both of us sure the world was bigger and kinder than we'd already learned. I pressed my fingers to the picture, then to his face now. He flinched, like touch-burned. "I was wrong," he said, so soft I almost missed it. "About a lot," he swallowed. "Keisha don't have to be right for me to do right." Then he left, quick, like leaving the scene of a small crime nobody would arrest him for anyway. I stood in my living room, breathing around my breaking heart, not from sadness, but from the way love stretches and doesn't snap, even when you think it can't stretch no more. I put the photo inside my notebook behind the page where I keep my prayer list. I wrote a new line. Marcus, humility, let it grow. Friday morning, the landlord on Joyce Ave handed Marcus and Keisha their keys. The metal flashed in the sun like permission granted. I thought of the key to my old apartment when I first left home at 19, how it felt heavy and holy. We set moving for Saturday. I called a moving company run by church folks who show up on time and don't break your mama's things. I made a pot of chili and iced a cake because hard days go down easier when there's a slice of something sweet at the end. Saturday dawned blue and wide. The movers, two brothers, named JJ and Cal, arrived with a truck that looked like it had seen both sorrow and joy and carried each with equal care. We started boxing the room that held the most pain, the living room where Keisha filmed my humiliation. I handled the breakables. Keisha tried to tell JJ how to stack boxes. He smiled polite and did it the right way anyway. Marcus carried the heavy things with a steady step. He didn't meet my eyes, but I saw the tension in his jaw ease like a knot a day late getting untied. In the bedroom, I found a small pile of my things shoved in a corner, a sewing kit, 3 hymnals, a photo of my mama. I gathered them and laid them in a separate box. Keisha swooped in. "You can leave that," she said. "We want a clean start." I kept my voice even. "These are mine," I said. "They come home with me." She smirked. "You got cameras? You want to film this for your fan club?" I let the words pass me like smoke. JJ wheeled by with a dresser and said, "Excuse me, ma'am," like the word ma'am still meant honor, and I breathed easier. We stopped for water on the porch. Miss Dot passed by with a plate wrapped in foil. "Macaroni," she announced, because she believes in feeding movers more than she believes in the evening news. "Put this in your new place, not your Instagram," she told Keisha without stopping. Keisha stared at her back, then laughed out loud like meanness was a tickle she couldn't help but scratch. In the kitchen, Tamia colored on a cardboard flap with a marker, drawing a house with a big sun and a woman with a triangle dress and a smile. "That me?" I asked, pointing to the triangle. "You," she said, grinning. "And that's our new house." I traced the roof with my finger. "May it hold your laughter and your sleep," I said. "May no one ever point a camera at you to make you small." By late afternoon, the Joy Ave apartment had a couch against the wall, a mattress on the floor, a toaster on the counter, and a window with a view of a tree that looked tired but willing. I set the cake on their new counter. "For your first night," I said. Keisha stared at it like she didn't know how to hold a gift that didn't come with applause. "Thanks," Marcus said, small. He didn't add anything fancy to it. Sometimes a thank you with no decoration is what you need. We left them to their first boxes and a first argument about where the trash can goes, I assume. Notebook. Moved. Cake delivered. Keys in their hand. My heart. Lighter, but still braced. You think the story tilts toward peace there. It did, then it didn't. Sunday morning, I woke to Miss Dot pounding on my door with both fists. "Ruth!" she shouted. "Check your porch!" I opened up to find a stack of printed papers taped to my railing, screenshots of Keisha's page, all my business chopped and screwed, captions uglier than the truth, comments uglier than the captions. On top, handwritten note in marker, "Stay out of our lives." The letters were angry and tall. I didn't cry, I didn't cuss. I did what old women who've lived through a couple winters know to do. I boiled water, poured it over tea, and opened my notebook. I wrote, "Evidence, printed by them, delivered by them, save for court, save for truth." Then I went to church and sang so hard on "Great is thy faithfulness," my voice scratched at the end like a match to tinder. After service, Simone pulled me into a side room near the choir loft where the vestments hang. "They're escalating because they lost ground," she said. "We take the wind out their sails." She pulled out her phone. "I'm filing a petition for a no-contact order based on harassment. The judge will either grant it or warn them. Either way, the papers will say what you've been saying into thin air. Stop." Pastor knocked once and slid in. "Also," he said, "we plan a meeting, not at their house, not at yours, at the church hall. We do it with chairs in a circle, eyes open, phones collected at the door. They want a stage. We give them a table." I nodded, grateful for people who know that justice isn't just a bang of a gavel, it's a way of arranging chairs so everybody has to see themselves. Notebook. Petition. No contact. Meeting at church hall. Phones in basket. Witnesses present. Truth laid out like plates at a potluck. The petition landed mid-week with a little thud in a mailbox across town. I know because the next morning, Keisha showed up in my front yard, waving it like a parade flag. "You really gone play like this?" she shouted loud enough to wake the roses. I stepped onto the porch with Miss Dodd at my elbow like a small army. "Play is what you do on your phone," I said. "This is protection." She threw her head back and laughed, then snapped a picture of my face, which wasn't what she thought it was. "Say cheese," she said. "No," I said, and reached out my hand. "Give me the paper I paid to file." She looked surprised enough to blink. I took the petition calmly from her fingers and tucked it into my bag like a letter from a friend. "If you violate it, you don't just answer to me," I said. "You answer to ink. Ink don't get scared. Ink don't forget." Keisha leaned toward me, close enough for me to smell her perfume and the fear behind it. "You think you won?" she whispered. "I think I set a table you refused to sit at," I said, "and now I'm changing the menu." She rolled her eyes, turned on her heel, and marched off, her flip-flops slapping the sidewalk like applause for a show nobody wanted to see. Miss Dot muttered, "Lord, keep my hands," under her breath, and went to get her phone because she documents with dates and times better than any archivist. Notebook? Keisha, front yard yelling, petition served, no response from Marcus. Dot present, phone photos, 9:17. The church hall smelled like old coffee and Lysol, like fellowship and clean up after. We set up chairs in a circle. Pastor placed a plastic basket at the door with a sticky note. "Phones sleep here." Brother Leon stood by like a friendly stop sign. Simone arranged papers on a clipboard. Miss Dot came in last, sat with her purse in her lap in the face of a woman who loves you enough to be honest. Marcus and Keisha arrived together. Marcus dropped his phone into the basket without being asked. Keisha hesitated until Brother Leon's eyebrows did a small, powerful thing. We prayed, brief and steady. Then Pastor said, "We're here to talk like grown folks. We use I statements. We don't call names. We keep our hands and our devices to ourselves. We tell the truth with clean words." I started. "I feel disrespected and unsafe when my image is used for mockery," I said. "I feel sad when my grandbaby is taught to laugh at me to make grown people feel big. I feel steady and right when I set boundaries that keep our circle clean." Simone read the petition's lines, measured, unflinching. Brother Leon spoke about what happens when harassment continues after ink says stop. Pastor talked about the difference between discipline and revenge. Then they spoke. Marcus's eyes were red like he hadn't slept right in a month. "I felt like a man when I told my friends I had a house," he said. "I felt small when everybody found out I didn't really." He swallowed. "I took it out on the one person who built my first bed." Keisha sat forward, chin up, like a fighter coming out of her corner. "My family told me to take what I could," she said. "Said old folks won't miss it. Said it's our time. I believed them. I should have been building my own table instead of sitting at yours with a camera." I let the words land. I didn't jump to forgive, not yet. Forgiveness is not a reflex. It's a choice you keep making, like refilling a glass of water. "Here's what's going to happen," I said. "You're moved. Your keys are yours. I'm changing the locks where my name is on the line. The court order still breathes. You don't speak my name online again unless it's to say, 'My mama taught me better than I acted.' You don't use Tamia to carry messages she didn't write. If any of that cracks, we go back to court and the next paper won't be gentle." Pastor nodded like an amen that doesn't need to be loud. Simone slid a paper forward. A written agreement. No contact terms, respect clauses, an acknowledgement of ownership and boundaries. Marcus signed. Keisha hesitated, then signed with a flourish that tried to disguise fear. "I want my own kitchen anyway," she said, softer than I'd ever heard her, "where the drawers say utensils and everyone knows whose hands cooked what." "Then cook," I said. "Feed your family, and don't season with mockery. We closed in. Prayer that was less like poetry and more like plumbing. Functional, necessary, built to hold. They left with their faces turned inward, like people learning the map of themselves without a phone. Notebook. Church circle. Agreement signed. Locks to change Tuesday. Breathing easier. Tuesday, the locksmith came just after the mail. He was a man with forearms like oak and a laugh that bounced off my front steps. He changed the deadbolt, handed me 2 new keys, and said, "This one's smooth. Won't stick when it's cold." I slipped one onto my ring, the weight balancing out the other keys like a cord you didn't know you were missing. I mailed a copy of the church agreement to Simone and tucked my version into the back of my notebook where the fabric of the quilted cover has started to fray from being loved too much. That evening, a knock. Not the angry kind. A small, polite sound like hope with its shoes off. I opened to find Keisha, alone, hands empty. "I brought nothing," she said, a strange greeting. "Good," I said. "Come anyway." She stepped just inside the threshold and stopped. "I wanted to say," she started and then restarted. "When I was little, we lived in the kind of apartment where the ceiling leaked when the upstairs neighbor took a shower. My mama blamed the ceiling. I promised myself I'd have a house where nothing dripped. When we moved into Marcus's, I thought I'd jumped the line in my own work." Her eyes got shiny but didn't spill. "I'm sorry I used your dignity as my ladder. I leaned against the door jamb because it felt good to let wood hold me up. You can have your own house," I said, "but you build it like you build a marriage and a child's sense of safety, with truths, not shortcuts. Shortcuts cut more than corners." She nodded. "I'm not asking you to forgive me today," she whispered, "but I wanted to stand here and not perform." "You're doing it," I said, meaning the not performing, meaning the standing, meaning the something like becoming real. She left with nothing in her hands and something different on her face. Notebook. Keisha. Apology at door. Roots showing. A week passed with no papers taped to my porch, no late-night knocks, no ugly captions. Tamia spent Saturday night at my house. We baked cookies, and she fell asleep under a quilt my grandma pieced with her church circle, back when dresses were itchy and hats were the size of bird nests. In the morning, she helped me cut roses to bring to church. "One for Pastor's wife," she said, carefully choosing the most open bloom. "One for Miss Rachel." She picked a bud still tight. "This one's for Mommy." I looked at the bud, all promise and no petals yet. "Give it to her," I said. "Tell her it's for beginnings." After service, we walked out into a sun that felt like favor. Marcus stood by the steps, hands in his pockets, face folding into a smile he used to wear more easily. He knelt and hugged Tamia so long she squirmed. "Daddy," she giggled, "you squeezing my breath." He stood and looked at me. "We cooking dinner tonight at our place," he said. "You come?" He didn't add conditionals. He didn't apologize with his eyes instead of his mouth. He just asked. Plain. I nodded. "We'll bring cornbread," I said, and my appetite for change. That evening, their apartment smelled like new paint and something in the oven that wanted to be lasagna but came out as, "We tried." I ate more than I needed to because effort seasonings do their own thing on the tongue. Keisha's hair was pulled back, no lashes, no filters. She handed me a glass of sweet tea that needed more sugar and said, "This ours. We payin'? No hashtags." I touched the rim of the glass to hers like a little toast. "To learning," I said. Marcus tapped his fork against his plate, a nervous habit from childhood. "Next week," he said, "I'm taking extra shifts." He swallowed. "Not to show off, to show up." Tamia crawled into my lap after dessert and whispered, "Nana, can we make pancakes again?" "Baby," I said, kissing her hair, "we can make a whole stack." Notebook. Dinner. Joyce Ave. Tea under sweet. Love over sweet. Progress real. All would have ended there if life were a straightforward story. It isn't. Thursday morning, Simone called. Odd thing, she said. A notice from the county clerk, the kind we receive when someone tries to file a quitclaim deed. I stopped stirring my grits. Who? I asked, already knowing the shape of the answer and praying it wouldn't be the person I loved more than my own pride. Not Marcus, she said, voice careful. A woman listed as family friend. Attached was a handwritten letter claiming you wished to transfer your interest in gratitude. The clerk flagged it because no notarization, no witness, and the letter read like gossip. We need to talk. My kitchen leaned a degree left. I turned off the burner, sat down, and pressed the phone to my ear like it might steady me. You think Keisha? I asked, not wanting to. Maybe a cousin, Simone said. Maybe a friend of a friend who thinks the word quitclaim means quick claim and skipped the part about consent. It didn't go through, but we add it to our pile. Paper telling the truth about paper. I drove to the clerk's office with the soft urgency of a woman escorting a child across a busy street. The clerk, a white lady with kind eyes and a sweater with pumpkins on it despite the heat, slid the flagged file across. The letter was in loopy, girlish handwriting I didn't recognize. The name signed at the bottom belonged to a woman I'd seen twice at Keisha's gatherings, the kind who laughs loud without joy. Attached was a copy of my driver's license stolen from a photo I'd posted when I finally renewed. My own mistake, my too big pride over a decent picture. I felt my cheeks burn with embarrassment and fury, but my voice stayed steady. Thank you for catching this, I said. We'll be back if kindness stops working. On the way out, I called Pastor. We circle the wagons again, he said. We remind them the difference between audacity and authority. I stopped by Joyce Ave. Marcus answered, eyes tired, his apartment smelling like coffee and new routines. We need to talk, I said. He pulled me in, told Tamia to turn down her cartoons, and sat with his elbows on his knees, listening like he was finally in a class with a subject he'd failed before. It wasn't me, he said immediately when I explained. I believed him. The part of me that knows him wore the truth like a coat. He called Keisha. She arrived winded, hair in a scarf, slippers on her feet, surprising me with the lack of stagecraft. At first, she played confused. Then the angle of her jaw shifted. It was Tiana, she admitted. She said she knew a shortcut. She asked for your license photo. She said she was doing something fun with it. Her voice shook. I didn't stop her. She covered her face with her hands. I wanted it to be easy. Marcus stood. Get out, he said, not loud. Go back and tell your friend we don't do easy that breaks the person who held us up. He paced once and then sat down. Like anger was a heavy box he wasn't going to carry long this time. I stood and took my coat off because sometimes a woman doesn't deliver punishment. She delivers clarity. Keisha, I said, you will call this Tiana with me on speaker and tell her to walk down to the clerk and retract what she tried, and then you will send me proof. And then you will sit in front of Pastor and tell him the same. If you don't, the next folks you talk to will have badges and a fondness for evidence. She nodded too fast like she was trying to outrun shame. We called. Tiana answered with a holler and then got quiet in a way that tells you a person suddenly met themselves in a mirror they didn't expect. She agreed to retract. She hung up. Keisha trembled like a branch in a wind she created. Notebook. Quitclaim attempt blocked. Name, Tiana. Plan, retract. Meeting, Pastor, Marcus, drawing lines. I didn't sleep much that night. I sat by the window and watched the dark unspool like thread, the sky moving from velvet to bruised gray. I made a list of everything that had happened, not to drown in it, but to see it all in one ledger. My justice on one side, their foolishness on the other. Then I turned the page and wrote a new list. What I choose next. Secure deed in safe deposit box. Update will to include Tamia's trust and explicit boundary language. Lock change complete. Install door camera for paper, not for show. Plan public reckoning not for vengeance but for truth. No more hiding what was done. Choose arena, not courthouse, not porch. Church, community center. Witnesses, Pastor, Miss Dot, Simone, Brother Leon, Miss Rachel, if needed. Evidence, bank forgery attempt, APS visit report, petition, fake quitclaim, video prints, school note. Ask, apology delivered with accountability, commitment to counseling, no contact online. Offer, olive branch shaped like Sunday dinner, open to those who act right. I leaned back, rubbed my eyes, and heard my mama in my head plain as a radio announcer. Dignity isn't a tone, Ruth. It's a posture. I stood up taller in my own house just to practice. Pastor called at sunrise, like the spirit had nudged him, and he put his feet on the floor ready to walk. We need a witness gathering, he said. Not a roast, a reckoning. You tell what happened. They tell what they did. We close with a covenant, not a curse. I said yes. And Ruth, he added, voice soft as the inside of a biscuit, if they don't accept the covenant, you let it be known you break bread with those who break burdens, not with those who break you. Miss Dot knocked 1 hour later with a clipboard. I got a timeline printed, she said. I wrote down dates, times, who stood where. I know how people try to make you look crazy when the truth comes out. She sat at my table, poured herself sweet tea without asking because she earned that right years ago, and read me her notes like a news anchor we both trusted. That night at the cookout, he said, Ruth, not Mama, at exactly 7:18 because my favorite show comes on at 7 and it had been 18 minutes. She smirked. Petty detail? Maybe, but juries love clocks. I laughed. I really did. It came out of me like a new note. Dot, if I ever go to war, I want you handling logistics. She patted my hand. Baby, you've been at war already. You just didn't pick it. You just decided not to lose. Notebook. Witness gathering. Set second Saturday. Invite list. Dot's timeline. My posture. Dignified. On the day of the gathering, the church hall was full. Neighbors, choir sisters, Brother Leon in a chair that looked small under him, Simone with a folder fat as a Sunday paper, Pastor with his Bible and his common sense. Marcus and Keisha came, Tiana trailing like a shadow that knew it had to show itself to disappear. Phones went into the basket at the door with a rustle like leaves in wind. The room felt like judgment and mercy had decided to share a table. I didn't perform. I told. I described the cookout. My hands at the grill, the phone in Keisha's hand, the word Ruth swiped across my face like chalk on a board you don't get to erase. I described the court, the bank call, the fake petition to the county, the late-night police at my door, the apology at my threshold, the small good things that tried to sprout in rough ground. I held up papers, not to wave them like trophies, but to let them speak, when my voice might have broken. Simone read the bank's statement about the attempted loan. Miss Alvarez's APS note sat in a clear sleeve. 9 clean words, silently calling somebody a liar without me having to. Then Marcus. He stood up without Pastor telling him to. I took my mother's quiet for weakness, he said. Each word a stone he chose to carry himself. I tried to be a man using other people's work. I tried to hurt the person who taught me to fix things when they break. I was wrong. He turned to me. Not performative. Real. Mama, I'm sorry. He swallowed and his throat worked like a man swallowing something sharp. It hurts that everybody saw me mess up, but I should have been this kind of hurt the night I said Ruth. Keisha stood slowly. I've been loud enough, she said. You don't need my volume. You need my truth. She talked about envy, about wanting the kind of safety my house held without doing the time it takes to become the kind of person who keeps that safety. She looked at Miss Rachel and said, I taught my child the wrong lesson in public. She turned to me. I'm sorry. She faced the room. I asked a friend to do a thing with paper that could have taken food off our table. She is here." Tiana raised her hand like a student called to the front. "It was me," she said, not looking proud. "I'm withdrawing anything I tried. I'll sign wherever Simone tells me to sign." Pastor stepped forward with a printed covenant. It wasn't churchy, not really. It said, "We commit to no harm, no mockery, no theft, of money, of dignity, of images. We commit to raising Tamia with a chorus of respect, not a crowd of cameras. We commit to let paper be paper and let love be love, and never confuse them again." It had lines for signatures. It felt both corny and holy. People chuckled and then got quiet because sometimes a corny thing is what keeps a life from unraveling. We signed. Marcus's hand didn't shake. Keisha's flourished less this time. Tiana bit her lip. I wrote Ruth the way I always do. R tall like a fence, H like a bridge. The room exhaled. Then Sister Bernadine started humming a hymn under her breath, and somehow all of us caught it, even the ones who don't hum. It was messy and lovely and exactly right. The gathering spilled out onto the church steps like a family after a long, hard funeral, when the casseroles have been eaten and all that's left is the sun on your face you almost forgot existed. People hugged me, not the pity kind, the I see you kind. Miss Dot put her arm through mine and said, "Now what?" meaning the practicals, locks, letters, lines. "Now we cook Sunday dinner," I said, surprising myself, "but at my table, with chairs only for those who know what a table is." Notebook. Covenant signed. Truth told. Public witnesses. My name. Steady. I invited Marcus and Tamia for dinner the next evening. I didn't invite Keisha, because I wanted the quiet of a mother and son to make noise without her phone trying to catch it. I fried chicken in the cast iron, made mashed potatoes like clouds, collards that didn't apologize for their bite. Marcus arrived on time with a bottle of ginger ale and flowers from the grocery store still in plastic. He handed me both, awkward and earnest. We ate without bargaining. We spoke without performing. Tamia told a story about a class hamster that bit a finger and how the class forgave it faster than you'd think. After dinner, Marcus and I sat on the porch. The evening settled like a quilt my grandma might have sewn. Purples, oranges, cold blue in the corners. "I'd like to keep paying you," he said, surprising me. "Not as rent, as making right, for the months I let slide like ice." I thought of all the ways money can be apology and proof. "We'll set up an account for Tamia," I said. "You deposit for her future, not as a toll at my door." He nodded, relief making his shoulders drop an inch. "I can do that," he said. "I will." A car rolled by, slow, music soft. Neighbors waved. The street looked like itself again, worn but good, friendly without pretending everything's fine. Miss Dot called from her porch. "Y'all good?" "Getting there," I called back. In our part of the world, getting there is sometimes better than saying we're there. It's honest. It's enough. Before they left, Marcus hugged me, longer this time. He stiffened like a man ashamed of needing a mother still. Then he softened like a son who remembered a lap at 3 in the morning and the way water tastes after crying. "You saved us," he whispered. "No," I said into his shoulder. "I saved what could be saved and put the rest out with the trash." When the door closed behind them, I stood in my kitchen and let the quiet fill up like a jar under a faucet. I put my hand on the manila folder in the drawer, not like I was guarding it, but like I was thanking it. Paper had been my sword and my shield. Love had been my compass. God had been the ground under my feet when the room tilted. I reached for my notebook, flipped to a clean page, and wrote, "Tomorrow, plant new roses." Then my phone buzzed. A message from a number I didn't recognize. "You think this over?" It was followed by a photo, a blurred shot of my house taken from across the street at night. The porch light glowed like a small sun. My curtains hung like peace. The message, "You can't watch all doors." My breath caught. Not fear, calculation. I walked to the window and looked out into a night that felt less empty than it should. Somewhere, a car idled. Somewhere, a person who didn't know when to quit played with matches near dry brush. I whispered, "Not tonight," to the air and picked up my phone. I texted Pastor, Simone, and Brother Leon with the photo. 3 dots appeared and then 3 replies nearly at once. Pastor, doors of the church are open. Also, I'll swing by. Simone, screenshot saved. We add to our file. Brother Leon, porch cameras on. I'll park up the block for an hour, say hello to the night. I locked my door, not from fear, but from ritual. I sat on the couch, notebook open on my lap, pen ready not to shout but to remember. I poured sweet tea into a glass heavy enough to knock sense into anybody if I needed it. And I waited, the way a woman who's been tested waits, not for permission, but for her next right thing. I didn't sleep much, but I didn't tremble either. Brother Leon's car idled up the block like a quiet guard dog. Pastor swung by and sat on my porch steps, humming a low line of blessed assurance, while the moths tapped the light. Simone texted, "Document everything." I took a picture of the message, then a picture of the door, then a picture of my own face so I'd remember exactly how I looked the night I decided fear wasn't going to decorate my house. Sometime after midnight, the porch camera blinked. A figure in a hoodie paused across the street, lifted a phone, took a photo, and slipped away. Not bold, sneaky. Brother Leon followed at a distance and messaged the make of the car. In the morning, he knocked on my door with a small smile. "Got a tag," he said, writing it on a sticky note. "Belongs to someone named Devin with priors for petty nonsense. He's on Tiana's page a lot." He sipped my coffee like it belonged to him. "We'll bring this to Simone. We don't chase ghosts. We let paper turn them into people." I stood at the sink and watched sunlight find the rose petals I'd cut for church. I thought of seeds, how you bury them in dark and hope they're brave. I put 2 slices of bread in the toaster and hummed, "I need these so soft only the butter could hear." Before I go into what happened next, the last door, the last lie turned honest, let me say this, plain and from my chest. Before I continue, if my story touches your heart, please subscribe so more voices like mine can be heard. Pastor called that afternoon. "We do another circle," he said. "Not for show, for safety and truth and the relief that comes when everybody hears the same thing at the same time." He booked the fellowship hall. Simone said she'd bring the porch camera clip, the bank report, the county clerk flag, and a letter she drafted to the platform where the cookout clip lived, laying out how the video violated my rights. "They won't take it down fast," she said, "but they'll feel the heat." I wrote invitations on index cards, my handwriting neat, the loop of my H still my mama's. Witness gathering, fellowship hall, 6 p.m. Phone sleep in basket. Truth sits in chairs. Come if you can listen. I slipped one under Keisha's door. I handed one to Marcus on the sidewalk, our fingers brushing like we were passing something fragile across a fence. I left one with Miss Rachel at school, just so she knew where the fault lines were and how we planned to mend them. At 5:30, I set out a pot of coffee and a tray of cookies, because even in a fight, we feed folks. Miss Dot straightened the chairs with the urgency of a woman who knows a crooked row can make a true thing look off. Brother Leon set the basket for phones, placed a handwritten sign, "No filming." "We're not fish in a bowl." Simone stood by the table with her papers like a teacher on the first day, calm and ready. Keisha arrived first, wearing flats and a sweatshirt like she'd dressed down on purpose, like she wanted to be small enough to pass through a door she'd made too narrow with her own noise. Marcus came with Tamia, who ran to me and tucked herself under my arm like a bird under a wing. Then Tiana slid in with a man I recognized from Brother Leon's sticky note. The hoodie fit, the jaw told on him. He tried to lean against the wall like he didn't have bones built for standing. Brother Leon moved him to a chair with just a look. Pastor prayed short again because we had work to do. "Lord, we want light, not heat," he said. "We want truth, not triumph." He nodded at me. I stood. "I won't recount everything," I said, holding the room, not letting it hold me. "Most of you know the bones already. Tonight is not for repeat performances. It's for the new piece, the night pictures, the porch steps, the car that idled up the street like a question." Simone clicked the TV to life. The porch camera clip played, the figure in the hoodie, the photo, the quick retreat. Marcus sucked a breath in between his teeth. Keisha closed her eyes. Simone switched to a DMV pull, a list of names attached to a plate. "This gentleman," she said, gaze locked on the man beside Tiana, "has a favorite hoodie and a habit of thinking people aren't paying attention." Tiana's mouth fell open. The man shrugged like a child caught with sugar on his fingers. "That ain't illegal," he muttered. "It ain't kind," Miss Dot answered. So fast the room laughed a little and then hushed. Simone slid another paper forward. "We also have the bank documents from the attempted line of credit, the forged signature, and this letter from the county clerk about a quit claim that didn't quit because it didn't claim right." She stacked the pages like bricks. Individually, each piece is a mess. Together, they create a picture of harassment and attempted fraud. We can take this to the DA. We can push charges. Or we can write a different ending if the people responsible put their name to the harm and repair it. Keisha's hand shook. She raised it like she was in a classroom and needed permission to speak. "I asked Tiana to help," she said, voice thin but true. "I wanted a shortcut. I told myself it wasn't really stealing because Ruth would always be okay. I told myself a woman who sings alto and bakes pies could carry anything." Her eyes found mine and stayed. "I was wrong. I was cruel to the one person who made me feel safe when I didn't know what safety was." She turned to Tiana. "And I brought in a friend who thinks attention is work." Tiana lifted her chin, that stubborn girl chin I recognized because I used to wear one. "I thought old people don't need houses when they're almost done," she said, rolling the words like gum. "I thought the internet is where you win now." Simone didn't blink. "Ma'am," she said, "the internet is not a court, and it won't raise your rent money. You can apologize here, or you can apologize in front of a judge. Either way, ink is waiting." The hoodie man, Devin, stood up halfway like a thought got stuck in his knees. "I was just doing a favor," he said. "Taking a picture. Nobody got hurt." Brother Leon rose 1 inch, and somehow the room felt rearranged. "Son," he said, "I've stood in living rooms where people said that right before somebody got hurt. We ain't let that train leave the station tonight." Marcus cleared his throat. He looked at me, then at his hands. "Mama," he said, "I want to say this in front of witnesses because I was wrong in front of witnesses. I hit you with my words. I swung with my pride. I let somebody I love treat you like a clown in a circus I bought tickets to. I will not be that man no more." He turned to Keisha. "And you will not be that woman, not if you want to eat at my table." Keisha's eyes filled and didn't spill. "I will issue a public apology," she said. "On the same pages, I hurt you. I will take down the clips. I will block anyone who tries to keep the fire going. I will go to counseling, and I will volunteer at the pantry Sister Bernadine runs until my mouth knows how to feed without biting." Simone, who doesn't do soft for long, did soft then. "And you will sign a restitution plan," she said, sliding a fresh page forward, "for the legal fees and the nonsense." Keisha nodded. Tiana nodded after she looked at Devin, and he gave her a look like a stray dog deciding to sit. "I'll sign," Tiana said. "I'll go with you to the clerk and write what I did in my own hand." Pastor lifted the basket, shook it so the phones clinked like coins. "We're not done," he said, "but we're not lost either." He turned to me. "Ruth, anything else?" I felt the room breathe with me, and I let my voice be plain. I'm not a woman who demands groveling, I said. I'm a woman who demands order. Paper in the right drawer, names where they belong, children protected from adult foolishness. We've got a covenant in ink. Now we're going to have one in action. We closed with a prayer that sounded like sweeping, quick, thorough, corners included. People signed. Devin wrote his name like it hurt, then wrote his number under it for the officer who might need a word later. The room emptied the way a storm does. Slow drips, then clear air. On my way out, Sister Bernadine pressed a foil-wrapped slice of lemon pound cake into my hand. "For your nerve," she said, and winked. The next morning, Keisha posted a video with no filter, no music, no eyelashes, just her face and her words. "I disrespected an elder," she said. "I turned a home into a stage and a woman into a prop. I'm sorry. The videos are down. If you saved them, delete them. If you laughed, examine that. If you love me, hold me accountable." Comments poured in. Some ugly. The internet always has weeds. Many kind, a few ashamed. I laughed then. I'm not laughing now. She pinned it to the top of her page and turned off everything but comments that came with a name. Simone sent notice to the platforms. The worst of the clips vanished over the next days, like stains you scrub and scrub until the fabric starts to remember clean again. It wasn't perfect. Things never disappear altogether once the crowd has handled them. But the noise dipped. The night photos stopped. The porch rested. I went to the bank and moved the deed to a safe deposit box. I sat down with Simone and updated my will. Tamia's trust. Clear language about who gets keys to what when the time comes. "This is the part people don't like to talk about," Simone said, "but it will keep your love from being turned into a prize fight." I initialed, signed, and felt 15 pounds lighter in my chest. Marcus set up an account named for his daughter. Every Friday he sent me a screenshot of the deposit. No captions, just the numbers and a little green check. "This is not penance," I told him on the phone. "This is practice." He said, "I know." And I heard the man in him sit up. Keisha showed up at the pantry on Tuesday with her sleeves rolled. She handed out bags of beans and cans of tomatoes. The older ladies watched her like hawks at first. Then they started nodding as she moved steady and didn't look for a camera. "We'll see," Sister Bernadine murmured to me, which in her mouth is more blessing than warning. Devin, the hoodie man, mowed Miss Dott's lawn one afternoon. He did it badly. Lines crooked, clumps left. But when he finished, he knocked on her door and asked for notes. She gave him a list, and he came back the next day and did better. "People can learn," she said to me, handing me a tomato from her porch plants. "Sometimes they just need somebody to look at them doing it right." Tiana got a part-time job at the church daycare, where cameras aren't allowed and stories are told to faces you have to look at. She lasted 1 week, then 2, then a month. "Kids don't care about your followers," she told me one day, dead tired and grinning. "They care if you show up on the dot with their juice." I said, "Welcome to a world where faithfulness is the trend." The night of Tamia's school open house, I wore my blue dress and my silver cross and brought a Tupperware of cookies for Miss Rachel. The classroom walls were covered in construction paper suns and wobbly lettered sentences. On the back wall, a poster, "Ways to respect grown-ups," and with kid handwriting, "Ask before filming, use kind words, listen, help." Tamia grabbed my hand and tugged me to her desk. On top sat a paper she'd drawn, a house with a heart above it and 3 stick figures beneath. 1 triangle dress, 1 line body, 1 small with puffs. Under it she'd written, "My house is safe." I bit my lip hard enough to taste salt and bent down to kiss her hair. On the way out, Keisha caught up to me. No makeup, just a tired, honest face. "We start counseling next Wednesday," she said. "I found a black woman therapist who doesn't let me skate with jokes." She laughed, but not like before. I figured if I can't tell the truth to one person, I'm not ready to tell it to a crowd. "That's a good start," I said. "Keep walking." Marcus walked up with 2 small roses in a plastic bag, the kind the PTA sells for $1. He handed one to Tamia, one to me. "For firsts," he said, "for this feeling." He looked at me too long, like he was trying to memorize something in my face for when pride comes like a thief again. "Mama," he said, plain, "thank you for not choosing violence when you had every right to throw something." I squeezed his hand. "I threw paper," I said. "I threw prayer. I threw a net and made you swim like a man." Sunday dinner came back to my house like a season returns. Greens, cornbread, sweet tea, sweating in tall glasses, Tamia setting forks like a ceremony. I kept 2 chairs open at the end of the table, one for whoever needs a seat one day, and one to remind me that absence can teach as much as presence. We said grace. We ate slow. We talked about ordinary things. Marcus's hours, Tamia's spelling test, the way my roses needed pruning by Friday. Peace is not fireworks. It's a steady flame that stops asking you to clap. News traveled in our neighborhood like wind under a door. Folks waved different. Some apologized without saying the word, just by how they tilted their chin when we met at the mailbox. The men at the diner counter argued about the Buckeyes, then slid me a "you did right" under the noise. Ms. Alvarez from the county stopped by for a check-in she didn't have to make. "Just wanted to see the roses in person," she said, and we stood on the lawn like 2 women who understand paperwork can save a life. I planted new roses, yellow this time, because joy needs color that doesn't ask permission. While I pressed soil around the roots, Tamia dug small holes for marigolds, her tongue poking out with concentration. "Flowers are like people," she declared. "You got to give them water and sunshine and tell them good job." "And pull the weeds," I added. She nodded, solemn as a judge. "And pull the weeds." At night, when the house went quiet, I sat with my notebook and wrote the sentence I'd been reaching for since the cookout. "My silence is not surrender, it's surveillance. And my speech is not shouting, it's strategy." I underlined strategy so hard the page thumped. To the ones who ask how you survive humiliation like a public sport, I'll tell you what saved me. Jesus paper, neighbors who know the sound of your real name, and a child who drew a house with a heart above it and called it safe. Also, a skillet that remembers the meals you made when nobody said thank you, and a garden that forgives you when you forget to water on Wednesdays because you were in court, telling a judge you're still the owner of your dignity. I don't pretend evil disappears just because you do right once. Pride will knock again. The internet will offer its megaphone to the loudest fool in the room. But I got locks that turn, a covenant in a drawer, and a choir that will hum me through a storm while I tie my scarf and put cornbread in the oven. I've got a son who learned to put money in a child's future instead of a lie, and a daughter-in-law who's learning to serve without stage lights. I got a neighbor with a clipboard and a retired deputy with a parked car, and a pastor who saves his sermons for Sunday and his quiet strength for Tuesday afternoons when the world feels thin. If you're here because you've been hurt by your own blood, hear me. Boundaries are not betrayals. They are bridges you build back to yourself so you can walk home without burning. Don't argue with a camera. Don't audition for people who don't buy tickets to your piece. Write it down. File it, sing anyway. Feed who shows up with clean hands. If you have to, sell the thing that became the stage for your pain and build again somewhere nobody remembers where you fell. But if you can salvage the ground and replant, do. Sometimes justice looks like a sign that says, "No filming," a lock that turns smooth in winter, and a Sunday where the only plate being passed carries biscuits, not blame. At the end of it, my face healed, my name stayed mine, and my house, this little square on East Columbus with roses and a mailbox that doesn't jam no more, held firm. Dignity came back and sat in its chair like it never left. Maybe it never did. Maybe it was waiting for me to stop pleading and start acting like the woman my mama raised, the the one who knows paper is a hymn when you sing it right, and silence is a drum beat when you march it straight. I taped Tamia's drawing to my fridge. Triangle dress, stick arms, big smile, heart over house, and every morning I touch it like a blessing. Every night I lock my door and thank God for a quiet that doesn't ask me to apologize for existing in my own kitchen. The video views shrank. The whispers turned into nods. The hurt wrote itself into a story I can carry without breaking. This was my story. Now tell me, what part touched your heart the most?